Oh shit.
It's good to catch it now.
I have to redo that. It's not gonna be as spontaneous, but it caught the video but not the audio.
Mm-hmm.
Hello there and welcome to the Bitcoin Takeover podcast. I'm here with Pavol Rusnak, who is also known as Stick, and he's the co-founder of Satoshi Labs. He's very well known in the space for working on the Trezor, for contributing to Slush pool, and also more recent projects like Inviti, like Tropic Square, and something else I'm not allowed to talk about. And today we're going to talk about both the history of Satoshi Labs, the contributions that they made, which are called slips, but they also did much more than software, and also the future of it, because there are lots of projects that we should look forward to. And this is really exciting. I can't believe I'm here. We have a painting with an octopus with Bitcoins behind us, and let's get going.
So thank you very much, Vlad. It's very nice to see you in person finally. It's nice to communicate online, but it's always much pleasure on my side as well. So let me maybe first start with the history. And you also said that I was involved in Slush pool, and that's a common misconception. But I will explain how this misconception maybe came to place. So. I got introduced to Bitcoin in 2011, and it was here in Prague when one of the first conferences about Bitcoin ever was happening in November 2011. Maybe it was the first Bitcoin conference ever. I have never heard of any prior Bitcoin conferences, and that's where I met a lot of cool people that are still involved in Bitcoin. And one of the people that I met there was Slush, and afterwards there were some local meetings happening in Prague. Hackerspace is called Brumlab, and for every week there was this small group of people when we were talking about Bitcoin, and one of these people was Slush again, and he was very famous back then, and he was basically running this one-man show operation called, it was not called Slush pool back then, but it was called mining.bitcoin.cz, so it was Bitcoin mining check back then, but it was the first Bitcoin mining pool ever. And as I said, it was one-man operation, and I was never involved. How I was involved was that basically Slush was telling me like, "Oh man, this is so hard. Like I don't have much free time. I can spare a lot of my time to do stuff that I really like." And you probably interviewed and covered that with Slush. And when we were having these discussions, then we realized that one thing is mining your Bitcoin, but the other thing is where to store it. And we, with Marek, we are computer nerds, and we were using Linux on our computers. And we had this feeling that we can at least try to make it secure, but still holding your Bitcoins wasn't 100% sure operation even for us. And we thought we really need to make it very easy for regular people that are not nerdy, that are running maybe, I don't know, Windows computers, which are notoriously very bad about security. And that's when we started to talk together how to solve this problem. And it seemed that these conversations naturally evolved into creating a hardware wallet. Like originally, we were not hardware designers. It wasn't like we wanted to create a hardware and then we were looking for a problem to solve with the hardware. We had this really nice and concrete problem, and we wanted to solve it, and it seemed that hardware was a solution. So we were started to meet in this Prague hackerspace called Lab regularly and trying to experiment with lots of stuff. It was lots of experimentation for us because we were not the hardware guys. A lot of dead ends, and the cool thing about hackerspaces is that you meet a lot of people that have the same mindset about sharing knowledge and ultimately being open, but they usually have some different background than you have. So we met a lot of people that probably were very good designers. In the hardware space, but they were not that good, maybe software developers. And I want to give a special shout out to my friend Sargon, who taught me a lot about designing electronics, and also we spent a lot of time with experimenting with another person you might know, and it's Karel Kielski, who was also part of the Bromlam hackerspace, and now he's running the General Bytes company, the company behind the ATMs that are sold all around the world. So he was also involved in the beginning, and we were discussing the various hardware design choices, and ultimately this led to a working prototype that turned out to be really feasible for us to produce. And it was around the year 2013 where we were really confident that we can deliver this solution to people, and that we can start a company around it and start manufacturing that in batches that were not like a single pieces of device. The funny thing is that originally we thought there are like 100 people on the internet we know on the Bitcoin Talk, and maybe there were some other few hundreds that might buy this device from us. So we wanted to have a run of 1,000 devices, and then we arrived at this company, who was run at that time by Evgen Engelbert. I will talk about him later, and he said like 1,000 devices, that's small. Like 10,000, that's also a small batch. Like, let's make 30,000. And we were like, well, this is just so crazy. We are not sure that we will be able to sell so many devices. So we negotiated, and in the end, we agreed to make a batch of 10,000 devices. But then we kind of committed to make another batches with the same company. So we basically agreed on the batch of 30,000, but we made just 1/3 of it at the beginning. So we were really happy about the outcome, that there was so much interest on the internet, and we were able to sell not only this batch but also the other batches, and that's how we were able to bootstrap the company without getting any external VC funding. And this is something that's still true up to these days. And I kind of hinted about two principles that are, I think, very important for what we do. And one of them is being open source, and other of them is being independent. Before I started my journey with Bitcoin, I was working for a company called SUSE Linux. And SUSE Linux is a commercial vendor of Linux distributions. The other, maybe people will know their competitor called Red Hat Linux, which is probably a little bit more famous. And the thing with this...
I think it's called Fedora today.
Yeah. So Fedora is like the open source version of Red Hat Linux, and every 2 years they take Fedora, stabilize that for maybe an extra year, and then push that on enterprise users. The same happens with SUSE. They have OpenSUSE, which is an open source project, everyone can use that for free, and then every 2 years there is this stabilization period where it's being stabilized and pushed to enterprise users. And back then, when I was working for SUSE, I realized one really magical thing, that even these two companies, SUSE and Red Hat, are competing for their customers via their sales agents and all the commercial stuff. But there was like so much collaboration between these two companies on technological level, because ultimately there is just one Linux kernel, there is just one terminal and compiler and other stuff you want to have in Linux distributions. And we had these conferences where we met with each other and shared our knowledge, because that's ultimately the spirit of open source. You can share the knowledge, and you don't need to reinvent the wheel all the time. You can inspire yourself, because if you have 200 smart people, that's nice. But if you have like 400 smart people, because 200 are working for one company and 200 for another, and there are like 1,000 contributors outside, it's even better. And it was totally obvious for us from the beginning that Trezor should be open source, not only in order to be auditable, like Bitcoin, this don't trust, verify mantra, but also to have this, public opinion and scrutiny and maybe new ideas coming into the product. And the other value I was talking about is this independence. We always wanted to be financially independent, because we were afraid that if we get money from an investor that might not be enlightened, they would interfere with our product. And once you start making some compromises in a device like Trezor, it's never good. Like you can't make a lot of compromise when it comes to security. It's either secure or not. Yeah, so I kind of lost my train of thought. So maybe if you will help me or ask me another question.
Golden Bitcoin on Voltoro, golden Bitcoin on Voltoro, golden Bitcoin on Voltoro, golden Bitcoin on Voltoro.
Voltoro is the exchange where you deal with honest and hard money. There is no fiat on-ramp or off-ramp, and you get to diversify your Bitcoin portfolio into gold or silver when you sense that a bearish moment is coming. Also, you can instantly trade your gold for Bitcoin to buy the dip. And if you're into gold custody, Voltoro can also send you the gold that you own directly from their insured Swiss vaulting facilities. Voltoro was launched in the aftermath of the Mt. Gox hack. So since 2015, they have published monthly glass books to prove that they own all the gold reserves and all of their customers' money. Sign up today by going to voltoro.com/Bitcoin takeover. Keep in mind that this is not financial advice and you are responsible for your own decisions. Wasabi Wallet is the perfect Bitcoin privacy wallet. It's free, it's open source, it's available on Windows, macOS, and Linux, and it offers groundbreaking Chaumian CoinJoins, which makes your Bitcoin. Even if you do not use the CoinJoin feature, you still benefit from a trustless experience with block filters, a hidden IP address via Tor, and easy management of your wallet outputs. After you deal with KYC exchanges like Coinbase, like Kraken, Binance, Gemini, or Bitfinex, you can remove the association between your identity and your Bitcoin address by performing a few rounds of CoinJoins. To find out more about the privacy benefits and limitations of CoinJoins, listen to Bitcoin Takeover Podcast Season 6, Episode 6 with Max Hilbrand. And if you want to give Wasabi a try, go to wasabiwallet.io and download the wallet for free. Wasabi Wallet, a Bitcoin privacy wallet for the citadels. Yes, so let me take this a little bit back because you mentioned two names who helped you during your Bitcoin journey.
Yes.
And I remember listening to an interview with Slush, and he was asked directly who introduced you to Bitcoin, and his response was Zuko. Zuko Wilcox Ahern.
Yes.
He was, I think, one of the first people to blog about Bitcoin, and also I think Slush was on the right channel to find out about it and got interested. Was there like a major figure in your introduction to Bitcoin who helped you understand what it is and made you understand that it makes sense?
That's a good question. I think that I spend a lot of time on the internet. So, I mean, I got introduced to the Bitcoin Talk forum. I'm not sure if it was by Slush or by somebody else at the conference, but since then I spend a lot of time on the Bitcoin forum and reading, not about technology side of things, but also the other things. So I can't really pinpoint a single name, but basically everyone who was active during that era and late 2011 on Bitcoin Talk forum. So, for example, I remember Gregory Maxwell then, or Peter Wille, and well, basically a lot of guys I can't remember. Maybe Luke Dash Jr. So it was really interesting to see all these different ideas, and I really like when I read other people's ideas so I can form my own. It's not like I just soak them in and start parroting. I want to form my own ideas, but back then for me Bitcoin was like totally new thing, so I was reading a lot back then from this forum.
So before I ask you this, and while you were talking, you were basically telling a story of the journey of creating Trezor, and as it turns out, you did have some challenges with the supply chains and producing at scale to, I guess, have the right costs for the units. And I did spend some time on Bitcoin Talk to look at the origins of these posts. And I did look into, I think, BTC Chip, which was the precursor of the ledger. And even in the first post, he mentioned that it's different from the Trezor because it's not open source, but it has lower production costs and uses that smart card technology. So even at the time, I think the perception of the Trezor was that it was like a luxury item. It was considered to be expensive as compared to the others, but right now it's fine to spend like $200 on a hardware wallet, and people are fine with it because they understand what it's for, and they value, I guess, the Bitcoins much more. Whereas in the early days, there were lots of people holding their coins in hot wallets, and they did not care too much if they were hacked because I guess it was not their entire savings or something. So did you envision at any point during the development of the Trezor that the importance would be this great and that everyone is going to end up to a point where they're going to have this anxiety that if they're holding their coins on a hot wallet, they're going to want to buy a hardware wallet to improve their security?
Yeah, like since the beginning, we wanted to be Trezor as affordable as possible, and of course, like you said, there were so many limitations with the price of the parts in the supply chain. But on the other hand, because we were pushed to do a series of 30,000 Trezors at the beginning, a lot of parts and manufacturing costs were quite low actually, because then around that number it starts to get like really interesting, and these bulk orders are small. So I think we managed to get a pretty good price at that point. Maybe we can remind people that we had this crowdfunding in 2012 where we were selling Trezor Model 1 device, the original one that you can still get right now for 1 Bitcoin. And there was a metallic version for 3 Bitcoins, which might sound a lot, but back then it was around somewhere between 16 and 80 euros per Bitcoin. So it was around $80 for a plastic one and $250 for a metallic one. And like you said, it's quite interesting to see that for some people even $300 is like no-brainer. They just want to have it secure, and they just buy what's there and what has the best features. And on the other hand, there are like so many price-sensitive people that are trying to save each dollar, but in the end, I think it's not really worth the saved money, because then you have the maybe not that great user experience, and you are losing in the long-term perspective. So it wasn't like we wanted to make a luxury item. We wanted to make it as used as possible. Like I said, the main goal for us, we were joking with Slush, is to make it possible for our moms to secure Bitcoin, because they can't secure their computers. We just thought back then that there are not so many people out there. We thought there were like maybe 1,000, 3,000 people, but definitely not hundred thousands or millions how we see it now. But of course, the situation has evolved since then, and more people are seeing the true reason why Bitcoin is getting more and more important.
I think that at this point, every Bitcoiner has at least one Trezor in a drawer somewhere. Mm. Are you keeping count of how many devices have been sold? Do you think you have reached the 1 million goal?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not sure. Like you said in the beginning, I don't think that every Bitcoiner has a hardware device. Like I think there are like 100 million people registered on Coinbase. So I wish everybody had the hardware wallet like Trezor, but they don't. So I can say that we already sold more than 1 million devices, but I can't really tell the actual number, because I don't write the numbers. But we are past that point already. And I think when we look at the whole market of hardware wallets, I think we are somewhere between 5 and 10 million sold devices. So there is an estimate the whole Bitcoin market is somewhere between, I don't know, 100, 200 million people. So I think that if Bitcoin goes well, and unfortunately there are so many bad things going on in the world, that I think that Bitcoin will get more and more traction. We will see more and more users, and maybe in the following years we will have 1 billion people using Bitcoin. And if like 10% of them are using hardware wallets, then it's a huge market we can or we should try to focus on.
Nowadays, it might be the marketing of some other projects that may or may not be forks of the Trezor, or direct copies, but they usually present themselves as the new generation, the new tech, and everything else that came before, and usually it's Trezor, is old tech that's obsolete, and users have this impression that they need to upgrade if they want to keep up with what's being developed in security. But most of the times that's not the case, as you have proven over the years, and you deserve a lot of credit for this, because the first Trezor that you released, from the hardware perspective, it's still valid. It was not fundamentally broken to the extent that you had to change it, that you had to release a new model and discontinue the old one, because you kept on improving the software. And usually what I tell people is that security is hard, and usually it's the most tested code base or the most tested model that should be trusted the most, as opposed to something new which comes out, has good marketing, but still needs to prove itself over the years. Ultimately, what we see that it's the same discussion with Bitcoin and Lindy effects. What you see that is out there and has been around for a long time and is open source and has huge incentives to get attacked, that's the best proof that you have that something is secure. So how would you comment on this idea that, you know, Trezor might be old? Because that was also the impression that I had, like in 2018. I actually bought into the Ledger narrative for a while. I was anxious about the lack of a security chip, and they are very efficient at explaining why, you know, hardware security matters as compared to software. They don't do as much software development, but I'm gonna let you take it from here.
Yeah, you opened a lot of interesting questions at once, and well, from my perspective, we tried to make the original Trezor as simple, as dumb as possible. We have not included batteries, Bluetooth, and NFC, because we wanted to make it a really good and simple product that will last for decades. And we were fully aware of the fact that we can improve upon the original design, like you said, by improving the software, and we've seen it. The Bitcoin is also improving at a very conservative rate, but it still is improving. Lately, there was this Taproot upgrade, and we were able to bring that on table as well. And I think with Trezor Model 1, we find a pretty nice sweet spot of how dumb it is when it comes to possibilities, I mean the hardware peripherals and so on, and the power, because it was when it comes to computing power, it was pretty strong at that time when you compare it to, for example, what Ledger had at the beginning. They were running on these smart card chips which had so little memory, so little processing power, and they had to do a lot of compromises to being able to run on that limited hardware, and we were free to just skip all of that, and that allowed us to create a hardware that is still being sold without any modification, basically. And I'm pretty glad for it. Of course, during the years, we recognized that we should come up with a modernized version, and that's how Trezor Model T was born in 2018. But then again, the design is very similar. We didn't introduce more complexity. We just made display bigger. We introduced touchscreen, which might be a little bit controversial for some people, but for these people who are so conservative, they can't trust the touchscreen. They can still get the older version, which has these physical buttons. So So yeah, and I think you are really right. There are so many new products appearing on the market, and everybody is claiming we are the next generation and so on. And people should really pay attention to these claims. And I'm really happy to see that on the internet, on Twitter, people are doing their own research and they are saying, okay, so maybe the brand new shiniest wallet isn't the best because, like you indicated, there is no track record. Also, there are a lot of devices with no displays and no buttons being sold as a hardware wallet, and
new ones are coming.
And new ones are still coming, and I don't really think this is a hardware wallet. I mean, maybe we screwed up in the beginning by calling it Trezor hardware wallet. Maybe it should have been called like interactive signer with a display or something, but well, it's called a hardware wallet. But I think we should be really careful about distinguishing what are different options of devices, because then if for example, if you don't have a display or if you don't have a physical button for interaction, then you are basically changing the whole security model of the device. And this is very important to understand where in this security model are issues you need to be careful about, and on the other hand, where are the things that you should not really care about at all, because the hardware wallet does that for you.
When I interviewed Slush 2 years ago, he mentioned something about more than 100 clones of the Trezor existing in the Chinese and Indian markets. And it's definitely interesting that you guys are very supportive and open to the idea of people building their own and even selling it. I can present another example of hardware wallet manufacturers who got upset that others are copying their design and selling it, so they changed their licenses. I guess you understand and you have had a longer experience in the space to know why it's important and why forks actually strengthen your own security and they can find something that you did not. So this collaborative approach is the one that pushes us forward. But how did Trezor stay in business? I mean, anyone can take the code, can take the schematics and put it into a nicer enclosure, maybe produce thousands of units at scale and get a good price and sell it for a better price than the Trezor. So, for example, the Keep Key, but I guess that's not a good example because it was always more expensive than the Trezor. But there are some clones out there that can copy exactly the Trezor. I guess if they have a couple of good coders, they can keep up with your development. But how can you still stay in business?
Yeah. I think we have right now the luxury of being in business and in Bitcoin community for so long that people just recognize that we are the OGs, and if there is some Chinese clone of Trezor, they should probably don't trust it because the track record of that company is not that great. But on the other hand, I can imagine the scare you have if there is some VC funded company that has probably infinite amount of money pouring in that is copying your product. That can be really scary, and that also happened like for us maybe in 2015 when we were scared a lot. But this thing, it has turned out that there were two companies actually. One of them was from China, another one was from Russia, and fortunately they went bankrupt. But back then we didn't had this luxury. We were known for maybe just 3 years, so the difference was not that great. But now we are in much better position since we are in Bitcoin community since 2011. It's how many? It's like 10, 11 years right now. So that's one thing. And the other thing is that some of these clones are not open as well, so they are kind of, I would say, like bootleg copies, and they are usually aimed for a market for example, like China or Russia, where we can't effectively deliver our devices to because either there are ridiculously high import taxes, or the companies like DHL or UPS, they don't want to deliver in that particular destinations. So I'm not super happy about these kind of bootleg clones, but at the same time it's not hurting our business very much because we can't effectively appear on that market anyway. But that's very different situation to if there was like a well funded Western clone, like for example KeepKey was. I'm not sure what happened there, but ultimately this was not a big competition for us, and they were struggling with bringing their product up to speed with all our security improvements. And I think maybe people saw that as well. So we were able to outcompete these clones by innovating faster. And that's also a nice thing about open source, that it motivates you to innovate faster than your competition, because everybody sees what you are doing. And of course, by being open source, we are enabling a lot of people that can build their own clones or own devices, and this is what I'm mostly happy about it. And there are numerous guides on the internet. There were some very specific how-tos on the Instructables and Hackaday, how to build your own Trezor. And I think that's also really, really nice, because if there is a situation with if you are living in a country with high import taxes on electronics, or maybe you are just so paranoid that you don't even trust us because of our funny accent, right? You can build your own device. And I know people like that came to me at the conference and said, like, I never bought a Trezor, but I have like 10 of them because I built my own, and I'm super paranoid. I'm not telling who I am, but like, good job. And it's really, really satisfying, because these people are so paranoid they wouldn't buy a hardware wallet from our competitor as well. So that's not hurting our business either.
Yeah, so it's also worth making clear that even though Trezor is mostly known as a hardware wallet company, it's more of a software company. And most of the focus is not on the hardware itself. I'm not sure if you guys produce your parts by yourselves in factories or you import them, but that's not what matters. What you're doing is to optimize it to work with your software. And when you launch improvements, they're most likely software oriented as opposed to hardware oriented. I guess that will change a bit with Tropic Square, which is another company under the Satoshi Labs umbrella. But before we get to that, let's talk about SLIPs, which are Satoshi Labs improvement proposals. And those are standards, or at least, proposals that are created by Satoshi Labs to improve the Bitcoin experience, not just Trezor. And you got to like 60 or something or more.
Yeah, around that. So first, let me talk about BIPs. BIP stands for Bitcoin Improvement Proposal, and it's a way how to introduce some ideas to the Bitcoin community, how to do things, and basically they are called standards, but they are not standards per se. They are more similar to maybe people know RFC documents, request for comments, and the whole internet is basically built on that kind of RFC documents. And they are de facto standards, but it's not like there is standard organization similar to ISO which says this is our standard. And the BIP process is pretty nuanced, and it has its own rules. But at one point in history, we we had an issue that we came up with an idea that was not accepted by the people running the BIPs, because it was not directly related to Bitcoin. It was more related to Trezor, or maybe how to handle private keys. And I have to agree that that particular improvement was out of scope for Bitcoin, because it was more general. So we came up with the idea to create our own repository of improvement proposals called SLIPs, which stands for Satoshi Labs Improvement Proposals. And we started to add our ideas there. We also had some external people that were coming up with their own ideas, and they had the same issue, that this idea is so generic and is maybe more like a cryptographical improvement protocol than Bitcoin. So they send it to our repository as well. And like you said, I don't know how many improvement proposals are there right now, but they are being adopted by others as well, because like I said in the beginning, like one of the key goals of open source is not keep repeating everything again, and don't reinvent yourself. And one of such things is, for example, BIP39, which is known as Shamir Secret Sharing scheme for recovery seeds. And this also, we felt that it's so generic. It's basically about how to split your key entropy into several pieces, and this key entropy can be used for virtually everything, not only for Bitcoin but also for other things as well. So it was like natural to have it in our repository as well. And it's nice to see that other hardware wallet vendors are also looking into that direction. And I'm not sure what's the name of this wallet. It's called Keystone Wallet. They already implemented BIP39 as well. So it's nice to be to keeping innovating in that area as well. And of course, if the thing becomes an open and widely used standard, everybody wins, because as we can see in the BIP39 standard, which is this recovery phrases, either 12 or 24 words, like literally every hardware wallet uses that right now. And this is a huge win for the end user, because if they for some reason decide they don't like Trezor, they can get another wallet and just use the recovery seeds to start using that right away, or maybe they want to go with the other way. I think interoperability is really very important for end users, because we don't want to log them in this garden. How do you say it? Like walled garden, old golden cage. And ultimately, Bitcoin is about freedom, and we want to provide people this freedom.
Yes, so you might be a little bit too humble, but to you watching this, if you ever wrote down 12 words or 24 words in any language, he is 50% of the team that worked on implementing that, and you came up with the rules and how to pick the words and have the first 3 letters and have at least a certain number of words that follow after that one. So that's how you pick a word, so that there is some plausible deniability, and you have to guess which word could have been after typing in these. And it's not just hardware wallets that use it, it's also mobile wallets, it's also shitcoin wallets, it's also pretty much everything. And it's kind of impressive that there's something like Coinami, for example, which is a bad wallet. But I would not advise people to use it, but at the same time, you can use the same seed phrase for all of your coins in that wallet. So I suppose this also has to do with another BIP, which created some interoperability and the ability to use, in the beginning it was for the Bitcoin testnet to be able to keep the same backup. I'm not sure about the number of this BIP. 44, okay. And was it made by you, that one?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, so you have a lot of contributions to the Bitcoin project, and even more recently, I saw that you did something about Schnorr or Taproot.
Mm-hmm.
You did some contributions and multi-sigs, and there's a lot to mention there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'm still part of doing all that crazy stuff you mentioned, but now that we have grown bigger, I have to give a lot of credit to my coworkers. We were able to draft several great cryptographers from Charles University, and we are working together on more complex standards. I mean, for more complex use cases, but at the same time, we want to make it very easy for users to use them, and this Shamir Secret thing is one of them. So it's not like me and Slush are doing all the hard work, but it's more like a group effort these days. But yeah, it's really rewarding to see that your ideas are being used in the wild. And for example, with this BIP39 recovery seed, I was really surprised to see that there is a hardened Android distribution called Graphene OS, and it has full disk encryption of your mobile phone, and it will give you the BIP39 sentence as a recovery for your full disk encryption on this Android phone. So it was really nice to see that these ideas are resonating in the community.
I know that you also work on NixOS, but I'm not sure how many Bitcoiners are interested in that. I know a couple of them. I know Peter Todd. I know that there is Jonas Nick. Yes, he's the maintainer, I think. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff that you do. But let's talk about, so what should I ask about first? CoinJoins or Tropic Square? You choose the first one.
Okay. So first, let me talk about the CoinJoin. We, of course, we recognize the need of having some kind of privacy protection in our software stack, and like for years we were trying to balance usability and security in our products, because you can't really have a great security if the usability is bad, because then user just don't know what they are signing, right? And we were trying to make hardcore complex stuff as easy as possible for users, and recently we also started to think about the third axis where we want to expand, and that's privacy. So we are now forming this triangle: usability, security, privacy, and we wanted to cover all three bases.
Zuko's triangle.
Yeah, Zuko's triangle is about decentralization and I don't remember, but people can find it. But yeah, we are trying to cover this usability, security, and privacy triangle in our product, and that's one of the reasons why we introduced Tor in Trezor Suite. So there is a one-click button that will just convert your Trezor Suite connection to Tor, and that, of course, solves only part of the problem. And the other part of the issue is having some kind of anonymity on blockchain. And one of the promising ways how to do it is to implement some kind of CoinJoin. So we were looking at solutions that are out there and thinking about what to do to bring this kind of feature to our users, and we started to have a discussion with Wasabi wallet about how we can make this possible for Trezor users. And of course, it's in our best interest to be interoperable when it comes to hardware with other hardware wallet providers, but still we feel that it would be of great benefit if we had CoinJoin directly in our Trezor Suite offering. So this is something we are working on right now. We are looking at what Wasabi team is doing right now, because they are going to launch the second generation of their software really soon. You probably had interviewed them already, and I think there is a lot of promise in their technology. That said, they probably get a lot of flag on the internet, and some of the criticism is right. For example, this toxic change, and we spend a lot of time analyzing the new Wasabi 2.0 protocol, whether all these flaws were addressed in a way, and I think it's shaping really nicely. So I'm not giving any ETAs, but I really hope that we will be able to announce something really soon. And maybe I can talk about the other topic, the Tropic Square, or do you want to add something to it?
I just want to say that it's great that you're removing the stigma from CoinJoins, as companies usually treat them as something undesirable. But on the other hand, you're seeing the potential for Trezor users to do it seamlessly from the interface of Trezor Suite. So I very much appreciate that. And I know that Wasabi has been working very hard on their new Wabi-Sabi implementation, which is different and is more scalable as far as I can understand. It takes less block space per CoinJoin, and they can improve the anonymity set. As far as I understand, so I did run the beta version, the one that CoinJoins on the testnet. I'm not happy about certain stuff that can be changed anyway, because it has to do with user interface. But I hope that they get it right. They're also a sponsor of this podcast, but my comments have nothing to do with that. And I hope that they really bring fungibility to Bitcoin, as this is, I guess, the last frontier that we have to approach. And we have to do it now, or at least sooner than later, as we see all of these, VCs and political figures who get involved into Bitcoin, and they come with the expectations of having everything clear and transparent. And we don't want to get to the place where you get to report, like in the case of Ethereum, you have one address and you have everyone else watching you. And some people even register Ethereum name servers so that you can see what they have been transacting. We don't want that in Bitcoin. And for it to be good money, it needs to be fungible. That's one of the properties that it needs to have, and privacy is a way to achieve fungibility. So now let's get to Tropic Square, because I was very excited since I saw the news. I wrote about 3 articles to write announcements about it. And basically, in a nutshell, it's a way, correct me if I'm wrong, it's a way to create secure element chips in an open source and verifiable way.
Right.
You did not want to compromise with something like the ATEX 608, like the one that you find in the Cold Card or in the Bitbox 02, but you decided to build your own, which I think is a very ambitious and noble purpose. If you succeed, you're going to have a huge market, because the security chip market also goes towards printers, towards ATMs. There are lots of devices that use security chips outside of hardware wallets, but I guess also other hardware wallet manufacturers are gonna buy the chips from you if you make them. So tell us more about this, because I'm not sure specifically what I want to ask you. Tell us more news, or when you think it's coming out, and what kind of expectations you have from the project.
Golden Bitcoin of Voltoro, golden Bitcoin of Voltoro, golden Bitcoin of Voltoro, golden Bitcoin of Voltoro.
Vaultoro is the exchange where you deal with honest and hard money. There is no fiat on-ramp or off-ramp, and you get to diversify your Bitcoin portfolio into gold or silver when you sense that a bearish moment is coming. Also, you can instantly trade your gold for Bitcoin to buy the dip. And if you're into gold custody, Vaultoro can also send you the gold that you own directly from their insured Swiss vaulting facilities. Vaultoro was launched in the aftermath of the Mt. Gox hack, so since 2015 they have published monthly glass books to prove that they own all the gold reserves and all of their customers' money. Sign up today by going to vaultoro.com/Bitcoin takeover. Keep in mind that this is not financial advice and you are responsible for your own decisions. Wasabi Wallet is the perfect Bitcoin privacy wallet. It's free, it's open source, it's available on Windows, macOS, and Linux, and it offers groundbreaking Chaumian CoinJoins, which makes your Bitcoin. Even if you do not use the CoinJoin feature, you still benefit from a trustless experience with block filters, a hidden IP address via Tor, and easy management of your wallet outputs. After you deal with KYC exchanges like Coinbase, like Kraken, Binance, Gemini, or Bitfinex, you can remove the association between your identity and your Bitcoin address by performing a few rounds of CoinJoins. To find out more about the privacy benefits and limitations of CoinJoins, listen to Bitcoin Takeover Podcast Season 6, Episode 6 with Max Hilbrand. And if you want to give Wasabi a try, go to wasabiwallet.io and download the wallet for free. Wasabi Wallet, a Bitcoin privacy wallet for the citadels.
So about Tropic Square, like you said, basically it's an effort to come up with an open source secure element because there is no such thing on the market right now. And during our work on hardware design of Trezor, we got a lot of questions like why don't you use a secure element? And we always wanted to get this element of trust from the equation by trying to teach people. There is this thing called passphrase, which is described in BIP39, and basically it gives you another layer of protection on top of the seeds stored in your device by adding an extra entropy in the form of words, sentence, whatever you come up with. And if you use that, then you are basically protected from any physical attack because the secret is just not stored in the device; it's stored in your head. But still, people were asking like, can't you make a Trezor with secure element? So, of course, we were investigating that area. And unfortunately, we found out that every secure element we looked into, we were able to find some critical flaw in not so long time actually. And I was really unhappy about the situation because when we reported these flaws to the chip vendors, they were two kinds of reactions. Well, one of these reactions was like, yeah, we know about the issue, but we just don't bother with fixing it. And the other reaction was like, that's a good finding, but you can't talk about it because we have to, or we want to fix it, and we are going to use this NDA you had to sign in order to get these chips for you. And I was not really happy about the situation, and ultimately we decided not to use any secure elements into our products, because one of the reasons why we are open source is that we can remove ourselves from the whole equation. And if we used a chip like that I know something about the chip that my customers or our users don't know it, that I'm still kind of in the middle of this equation. I can't take myself out. So one of the basic principles is I don't want to have this information edge over my users. I don't want to know more than my users. And we realized that the only way, and it probably will be a very hard way, is to come up with our own secure element. And we were thinking about how to do it. We were discussing with several companies here in the Czech Republic, and they were just not getting it. Like, why do you want to make open source chip? Like, everybody will copy you. And we were like, we know, but it's not the point. Like, we have this agenda, and nobody was getting the idea. And finally, it was 2 years ago, it clicked. I already mentioned Evgen Engelbert that pushed us to do this 30,000 batch of Trezors in the beginning. He was looking for a job. And at the same time, we had this ASIC designer originally from the Czech Republic, and he moved with the whole family to London, and then he was coming back to the Czech Republic because of the Brexit, and he was also looking for a job. And his name is Honza Pleskač. And suddenly it just felt we are in the really good point of time where we can start actually working on it, because we have the experience that Evgen brought from the sales and marketing and product perspective, and Honza, who brought this ASIC experience, and we just started to give them all these crazy ideas, what we want to achieve, and they were really happy about working on that plan actually. So the grand master plan right now is to create a chip that will be like a secure storage, like a secure box where you store your secret. And if you give the box the right pin, then this secret will be given back to you. So this is similar to how Bitbox or Coldcard are using their own secure element. They can't run their own code on the secure element. It's just this secure storage. And once we have mastered this chip, we want to create the second generation of the chip, which will be like fully programmable chip, basically replacing the chip we have right now in Trezor, because with the first generation of Tropic chip you would still need to have this chip we have in Trezor and the open source Tropic chip. For the second generation of Tropic Square chip, this will be just one chip containing both functionality. But first thing first, we have to first evaluate the feasibility of the first chip, and we are now in talks with lots of partners, lots of vendors, lots of security companies, universities, and I'm really happy to say that I was a little bit skeptical at the beginning because it seemed that nobody really gives a shit about that, but actually it turned out the opposite is true, and there are a lot of people that want to make this thing a reality, not only on the engineering side of big chip corporations, but also, like we said, at universities, or there are these specialized companies who really want to spend their time on making open source chip, but there was just no customer for them, so they had to do this rather boring commercial ASIC super secret things. So we were able to get all these people on board, have a lot of discussions, a lot of designs flying back and forth. And right now we are in position that since we are open source, we were selected to a program where you can there is this let me start from the other side. There is this foundry which is making the chips, which entered an agreement with Google that Google will pay for the manufacturing costs for projects that are open source, that want to make their own chip. So we entered that program, and basically right now we are in a position where we can send the manufacturing materials to that foundry. Google will pay for manufacturing, and we will get this wafer that is maybe, I don't know, 20, 25, 30 centimeters in size, which will contain around 1,000 chips, and we can just play with them, test whether they are doing what they are supposed to do. And this will happen in May, and then there is another round of the same thing happening in November. So if everything goes well, we will have 2 test runs for free in this foundry, and then the next year, hopefully when everything goes well with these 2 test runs, we can approach the the final production of the chip, which then we can test not only for us, but I also talked with Charles from Ledger. Like, you seem to like breaking chips, so we should, talk together. We will give you our chip. You can have a look at it. So they are pretty fond of that idea as well. So I think everybody kind of understands that this effort is important, and they want to be at least part of it. And I'm really hoping forward to see the results. And as I've said, I'm really surprised that we were able to gain so many clever people working on the project.
So according to your timeline and description, you don't think there's going to be a Trezor hardware wallet which uses the new chip that gets launched this year, as you're going to require testing. So first of all, it's going to be in May, and then there's the second batch in November. Mm-hmm. And after the results come out, you might go into manufacturing, for the Trezor.
Right.
And I'm not even sure if you have a design to put that chip inside of a Trezor, or did you work on a new design that's going to integrate that chip? Mm-hmm. Do you have prototypes or something?
Well, it's not that hard to integrate the chip into Trezor because it's really small. So when the chip is done, we can just modify the design of Trezor very, very easily. It's really small, and it's pretty standard. We wanted to make the chip very easy for others to integrate as well. So it's pretty straightforward. But like you said, this year is dedicated to these test runs, and the next year, 2023, will be dedicated to the production runs of the chip.
Right, so what else is exciting and going on at Satoshi Labs? You have the Trezor, you have Invity, which is like a gateway to buy Bitcoin from your Trezor. You have also Tropic Square. You have some research that you do with slips. So is there anything else that you can talk about at this time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we recognize the need that people really need easy access to Bitcoins in non-KYC way, because of course you can use some exchanges, but it's getting harder and harder to obey these rules. There are some banks that are asking just ridiculous questions, and we are trying to figure out the way how to do it in a way that's most acceptable for everybody. And like you said, we have this another company called Inwity. So Satoshi Labs consists of 3 companies: Trezor, Tropic Square, and Inwity. And Inwity is this financial on-ramp that tries to get Bitcoin more accessible to people, but so far the environment in the European Union is just not so great that it's very hard to get it without KYC. So we are still trying to find some ways how to make it possible. In the US, the situation is much easier. Me and Inwity announced the integration with Swan Bitcoin in Miami. So I don't know exactly what the limits are there, but I was told that it's much the regulations there are much less strict than in the EU. And yeah, I think we'd like to maybe find a way or find some tools, create some tools for people that will make it possible for them to start exchanging coins for fiat in a peer-to-peer way. I mean, there is always BISC. I like BISC. I find it a little bit too complicated for common people, but we are also looking into that direction. Like, is that something we should integrate into Trezor? I mean, if there are some ideas out there how we can make it easier for people in Europe to swap bitcoins with fiat in a peer-to-peer way, so nobody knows that's happening, then just let us know and we will probably deliver something like that.
I'm not sure if that was a hint or like a job application announcement, but you should contact him if you can find any good way to sell Bitcoin peer-to-peer in Europe. So yeah, I'm not sure if I have any more questions at this time. You can tell people how they can follow you and look at Satoshi Labs projects.
Yeah. So you can follow me on Twitter at Pavol Rusnak, or you can just write me an email, stick@satoshilabs.com, if you feel that you want to, write a longer form text. And of course, check out our website at SatoshiLabs.com, and there are links to these companies, Trezor.io, Inwity.io, and of course, TropicSquare.com.
Okay, thank you very much, and really, it's been an honor to interview in person.
Thank you very much, Vlad.
Golden Bitcoin on Voltoro, golden Bitcoin on Voltoro, golden Bitcoin on Voltoro, golden Bitcoin on Voltoro.
Voltoro is the exchange where you deal with honest and hard money. There is no fiat on-ramp or off-ramp, and you get to diversify your Bitcoin portfolio into gold or silver when you sense that a bearish moment is coming. Also, you can instantly trade your gold for Bitcoin to buy the dip. And if you're into gold custody, Voltoro can also send you the gold that you own directly from their insured Swiss vaulting facilities. Voltoro was launched in the aftermath of the Mt. Gox hack. So since 2015, they have published monthly glass books to prove that they own all the gold reserves and all of their customers' money. Sign up today by going to voltoro.com/Bitcoin takeover. Keep in mind that this is not financial advice and you are responsible for your own decisions. Wasabi Wallet is the perfect Bitcoin privacy wallet. It's free, it's open source, it's available on Windows, macOS, and Linux, and it offers groundbreaking Chaumian CoinJoins, which makes your Bitcoin. Even if you do not use the CoinJoin feature, you still benefit from a trustless experience with block filters, a hidden IP address via Tor, and easy management of your wallet outputs. After you deal with KYC exchanges like Coinbase, like Kraken, Binance, Gemini, or Bitfinex, you can remove the association between your identity and your Bitcoin address by performing a few rounds of CoinJoins. To find out more about the privacy benefits and limitations of CoinJoins, listen to Bitcoin Takeover Podcast Season 6, Episode 6 with Max Hillbrand. And if you want to give Wasabi a try, go to wasabiwallet.io and download the wallet for free. Wasabi Wallet, a Bitcoin privacy wallet for the citadels.